Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Inside Scoop as we talk to some campaign operatives out of California. My name is Jessie Jeanette. I am the Ignite Fellow for Denver, Colorado, and that's where I'm broadcasting from. So in my experience, I've knocked doors for amazing leading women in the state legislature here in Colorado, and I've served as an aide, and I've seen the firsthand impact of diverse women representing us in power, as well as organizing students to take power within their schools. And Ignite has given me the power to unite those two values of women in representation and young voices. So I am so honored to be moderating this panel today. And though we don't always see the campaign operatives, they are in the background doing the work, and we surely feel their successes, not only locally, but nationwide. So without further ado, I will get us started in introducing our wonderful panelists. So we have Lene Richards, who currently serves as the Chief Communications Officer for Los Angeles County, Supervisor Holly Mitchell. And prior to this role, she was the campaign manager for Holly Mitchell for supervisor in 2020. Lene is passionate about using the power of communications to mobilize communities to take action and help progressive candidates win elections. Thank you so much for being here, Lene.
Thank you. It's amazing to be here. I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today. I want to thank Ignite and Shay and the leadership team that has pulled this conference together. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. And we are so excited to get started. We also have Molly Watson, who is the Senior Development and Partnerships Manager for the progressive organization Courage California. She is an Emerge California alum who serves on the Black Women's Democratic Club of California board, is the scout for Close the Gap California, and works closely at the local and state levels in creating a pipeline for progressive women to run for seats over the next 4 to 6 years. Looking at some of y'all in the room. Molly is also the daughter of a Haitian immigrant and hippie from down south, yet she grew up in Huntington Beach, California. She joined Courage California excuse me, in February 2017 when she returned home to Long Beach with her husband and toddler Kingston after 7 years in Brooklyn, New York. Molly's favorite things include her family and friends, justice, laughter, and hair. Awesome. Molly, thank you so much for being here. If I left anything out, please feel welcome to fill that in.
No, thank you. That was great. Clearly, I provided my amazing bio to everyone. But no, I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for including me. I'm a big fan of what Ignite does, and thank you, to you, Jessie, for moderating, to Shay for inviting me, and to the leadership team for putting this together. I'm excited to participate with one of my sheroes, Lene, on this today.
Beautiful. We are so grateful to have you both. You're just total geniuses, and your experience is I'm so excited for y'all to shed some light on your experience with us today. So I'll go ahead and get started on some of our questions, because I know we have some young women in the room who will have some follow-up questions for you. And so those in our audience, please feel welcome to insert any questions or thoughts that you have in the comments. But we'll go ahead and kick off the panel with Lene, and then Molly, if you want to follow after, about what is your why? Essentially, what about your work gets you up in the morning and keeps you energized?
I love this question, and I appreciate you all asking. I think it's a question we have to ask ourselves regularly to just check in, because the work is hard and it is demanding of the work of creating progress and change. Essentially, that is the why for me. I want to be able to say that I'm doing my part to hurry up progress. I feel that as a Black woman, my very existence can be politicized. And because of that, I have no choice but to be engaged in the political arena, along with so many other women of color. Like, that is one of the spaces where we are able to create sustainable changes. And so that's what drives me to know that I'm able to do this work, because so many other people have sacrificed to allow me to be in this space. And I need to do my part to kind of carry on that baton and make sure we're pushing a little bit further. And that I know that we have a right to be here, as women of color, as women, to be in the political arena. And so that's part of my why.
I'll follow up there. Everything that Lene said is really crucial to, my thought process when I get up in the morning and when I get ready to go to work is, if we're not doing this work, then who else is? I, as my bio stated, coming from a I'm, as a child of immigrant, it is regularly pressed onto the sacrifices that are made in order for us to have these opportunities as well to participate in our democracy, to have a say, to use our voice, and to stand up for things that we may not be able to do if we weren't here. And to help figure out ways to get more people involved so that it's not on just us to do this work. I know there's a lot of amazing people in the audience right now, and I'm sure their wives probably come into the same reasoning, but just know there's more of us to stand on each other's shoulders of, to get up every day to do this really, really backbreaking work for a better future and a more progressive, inclusive future at that.
I love that sustainability in the air. Thank you both so much for the sacrifices that you commit, and then just the diligence, the energy that you put into the community. And that kind of leads to the next question is essentially, what does your organization do? And maybe I'll direct this at Molly, and Lene, you can definitely fill in because I know it's relevant to your work with members. So what does your organization do, and why is it important for those aspiring to serve in office to engage and participate with grassroots organizations like Courage California?
Yeah, so my organization we're a lot of fun. We're a small organization based here in California. We're the largest, most progressive digital organization that is here in the state. A lot of what we do is around watching corporations and watching our elected officials and making sure that we hold them accountable to what the values and the needs of the demographics they're supposed to be serving are. So, for instance, we've done some campaigns where we've held Nestle accountable for taking water from reservoirs in California that they're not really paying for. We've also, we do a scorecard every year where we rate every single legislator in the state legislature as to how they're voting on intersectional bills, and those bills that have a really hard time hitting the threshold of passing through. We basically, expose how well they are or not doing or representing the areas that they are from after their year of legislating. Now, the other things we do because of that is we do participate within elections and within making sure that candidates are being pushed into the right spaces and that people are getting the right information about the best candidates to represent them. And so it's really important for us to be able to have that connection with candidates so that we can have relationships with them as well as elected officials, so that when they are trying to put through progressive policies or work that is really, really important, that we can also come there to stand with them and to figure out ways to co-govern with them, as well as mobilize our member base around them. So hopefully it makes it all kind of come full circle as to why we exist and why we're here to help and the truth and information we try to bring to our members and constituents.
I love that. Thank you. And Lene, I know it's kind of a question directed towards grassroots organizations, but I know your work, being someone on that campaign side for a member, how important is it to partner with organizations like Courage California? Did you in your the race that you ran, did you all partner together?
Yes, I just want to say, I know Molly said I'm one of her sheroes. She's one of my sheroes too. So it's just a love fest right now. But yes, so Courage California was one of the organizations that had endorsed Holly Mitchell for supervisor. And so we worked very closely together in regards to helping to get the word out around what the race was about, the seat itself. A lot of people don't understand what the role of the Board of Supervisors is. And so now that I'm on the other side of it, working for the member, the arena that we're in is local politics. And I feel like that's where public policy connects directly to people's lives. That's where it all comes together and how you're able to live in your community. So it's so important to be engaged in that. But organizations like Courage California were able to help articulate, this is why you need to care about this race. It's important for candidates and the campaign to be able to say that, but it's nice to have organizations that are validating why this is the right person for the seat and helping the seat make sense, why we should care about what the Board of Supervisors does because of the particular role that government entity plays that's different than the state legislature and different from city council. And it's important for us to understand that so that we know what to ask of those different levels of government. And so Courage California did an excellent job of just being an amazing partner, helping to just lift up a whole body of work that Supervisor Holly Mitchell has that has earned her the right to be able to run for that seat and really be the best candidate for it.
I'll also add on there real quick that Lene happened to be the campaign manager for probably one of our most amazing state progressive legislators that I think the state has ever had. And so for what it is worth, like that scorecard that we did every year, basically Holly Mitchell was like the model of it. So we spent years telling people like, pay attention to this woman. She is amazing. You want her anywhere that we can have her, and believe in her and donate to her and support her and stand with her. And so frankly, supporting the campaign, even as part of an IE, as an independent expenditure campaign was not difficult because we had so much to run on for, the work that Holly had already done and was getting ready to do. And then we knew Lene would be kicking things out the way that she needed to keep things going as well. So it's that you have real amazing power when it's not that much of a flinch to have to figure out ways to get people engaged and help them understand the power of amazing candidates and elected officials like Supervisor Holly Mitchell.
Yes, we love when those values align and the implementation goes through. We love that. Sorry, Lene, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that I'm glad that Molly mentioned the IE component because it was an independent expenditure. We didn't get to coordinate, but the support was very clear. And they did an excellent job of just moving that along, of making it clear that Supervisor Mitchell had a whole track record. That is why they supported her, not just for what she did last year, but throughout her career. So thank you for that.
I love that. Thank you so much for those responses. That I think gives great insight to the kind of partnership and coordination that there is, not only like throughout campaign season, but also as you progress and as you become, a legislator, or as we keep moving in our community-based issues. There's that. There's a saying of like, never a permanent friend, but never a permanent enemy. But when your values aligned, usually your friendship's pretty strong. So that's really awesome to hear. I love that. But so we'll kind of take a little bit of a pivot and go towards Lene, with you and your experience in campaigning, especially right now during the pandemic. I know so much shifted. It's a little less so the door-to-door kind of interpersonal experience. So what are some of the greatest lessons that you've learned from campaigning during the pandemic? And then what practices do you think will just, be kind of the new way we do things?
It's amazing to think that this has now been a year later from when we first started getting notifications of the shutdowns. And what I immediately think about is that the community was able to still prevail. I think that the human spirit is stronger than a pandemic, and the need for us to connect to each other. We found ways to do it. I think that overall, the campaigning political community found ways, regardless of what campaign you were on, found ways to still reach voters, which is powerful to think about the ways that we were creative. And so that's one thing that stands out for me, that we were able to quickly pivot on to our virtual Zoom events, that phone banking and text banking. We went back to the tried and true organizing tools that we had and just completely lifted them up even more and said, this is what we have to do. That we also did other ways to, like, from postcard writing, anything that allowed us to still connect, got lifted up. And it was, our work was centered around that. We weren't going to let the need for us to be safe at home deter us from making sure we were still getting the word out. I think that virtual events are going to still be a thing, even when we're able to reconnect in person. It helps democratize the process in a way. It allows for more people to engage. It allows you to reach people even outside in regards to fundraising of your district, of your community, which is a huge help. And I think it just also just makes it more accessible for a lot of people who maybe, I can't physically get to that event, but I do want to show my support. So I think virtual events are going to stay.
Definitely. I totally agree. And I know, especially Ignite, we're able to coordinate regionally, and it's just expanded so much more that, I can connect with a legislator from Chicago and learn from them and even build that greater network. Molly, for you, I know that issue-based campaigns, y'all are still persisting and even getting stuff pushed through. So what are your thoughts on the ways that kind of the pandemic has impacted your work and what will continue beyond as we go in person?
Yeah, so I think that we like just have an underlying like equity issue that exists in politics and like most of life, right? I think what is interesting about how we were all pushed to go digital is that like we figured it out. Courage, I've actually been working at home for the last 4 years anyways, because we are a digital organization. It's only 10 of us who work across the state. And what that usually allows us to do is be in different places at once and to encourage people to use things like Zoom, et cetera, to be able to connect with folks. And so it's been really nice seeing that like people we were probably forced into it, right? But like we've all been figuring it out as well. I think in terms of like, you know, issues, trying to get out word on policy and bills that are going to try to come through. Most of what we've done has been like sign this pledge, you know, take action, call your legislator, send a letter, make sure you know how they're feeling. Obviously, it's harder to do, you know, in district visits or, you know, Sacramento visits in person, and I think that those bring a lot of um, human aspect, right? When you're seeing someone and interacting with them. However, I think that there are ways for us to get that over as well on things like Zoom. And I do think that being able to do all of this work digitally is something that allows more people to participate, like Lene was saying. In addition, because I am a fundraiser, I spend a lot of time trying to get to fundraisers, standing in rooms with people, fundraisers. And to be honest with you, most of the people in those rooms don't look like you or I or Lene or sound like us or they have much more wealth typically than at least me, that's for sure. And it makes it so that, you know, when I'm in those rooms, I usually feel like, oh, this is interesting. I'm in a space that a lot of people don't have access to. But for what it's worth, like that just kind of pisses me off because I'm like, how does everybody else get in here? How does everyone else figure out how to find money to be able to support their campaigns or to support their organizations? And so doing things like fundraisers online where you can see the names of the people that you might be trying to connect to and send them a private message or, you know, network a little bit over the digital platform that you're on so that you can continue to outreach to people you may not necessarily have access to. So my hope is that, you know, a lot of this stuff does continue to go online. You know, I'm even thinking about like endorsement and like those kinds of things that candidates have to go through. Frankly, I know people who have been like dismissed or like not gotten endorsements because they didn't show up to a meeting on time because they hit traffic or whatever else it was. And right, it costs money to travel, to get in your car, to put some gas in, to have somebody watch. I have a 6-year-old in the other room right now. I'm hoping he doesn't run in here, but you know, I have to find somebody to watch him or bring him with me to do in-person stuff as well, right? So if we have the opportunity to continue to connect in this way, while I know a lot of us are like zoomed out and those other things, and I think that we'll start to see it sort of be like a dual, a lot of like dual type of events, or, you know, like I said, my son is in kindergarten. Half the kids are going to go back in person and half the kids are going to stay on Zoom. Maybe that's something we can continue to do so that there is more equity and more access for more individuals to be involved and engaged in things like this. So that is my hope. We will see what happens.
Yes, I love that. Thank you both so much for that insight. And I love the idea of continuing and really like taking this experience and learning and growing with it. And I think hybrid is definitely the reality. As I've seen it, you know, as a student, I've seen it be way more accessible for a lot of students. And I think that has to be the way we move forward, is with access for all and not just some, especially as we are trying to break down these systems that were created by very few members of our society so that, you know, we could really have a truly representative democracy. So I appreciate you both and the way that you think, and then the work that you do. You match those values with the work that you do, and not everybody does that. So thank you both for that. And so this is the final question before we kind of open it up for folks to ask what they would like to know from y'all. So for the audience out there, make sure you're putting in the comments what you want to know from these wonderful campaign operatives. But we'll go ahead and kick it off with what advice do you have for future political leaders when it comes to gaining the support and partnership with organizations and members like those you both work with? We can go ahead and start off with Lene.
Okay. I think first and foremost is to do the work, to really understand the organizations, what they have been fighting for, not just coming around campaign season time and talking about why they should support you, but really being able to say, this is the work that we've been doing together. This is how I've been supportive. Even if you're not already an elected official, you can volunteer. You can help lift up their mission and work through your own platform. So there's ways to show that you're committed out the gate and building that relationship. And keep in mind that, just because you decide to run does not mean that people automatically have to support you. And so it really is about wanting to earn that and thinking of it as a relationship. That there might be times where we disagree. There might be times when I come to you for information, where you need to come to me for information, but I'm in this with you for the long haul. I want to do this with you. And especially when it comes to individuals that endorse, keeping in mind that they're giving their name, putting their name beside yours, and just having a level of respect for that, and making sure that it's something that they never have to second guess why they did that, regardless of the outcome, that you upheld your values, and you let your campaign and ran with a level of dignity that no one has to question why they supported you or endorsed you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Lene just said. I think that we are going through these times of like realizing the lack of representation that we have, right? And so people are like, you get up and you're like, what the hell is this about? I'm going to do something about it, right? Always remember that there are lots of people who are absolutely in this fight also, and that you can work with and learn from, and participate with and grow with. And I think that sometimes, we feel like we are stuck on the outside, and we always want to start our new thing because we feel like they don't want us in, or like the relationship's already there. But I think that there are relationships that you can continue to build, like Lene was saying, with your elected official, or with an elected official that you really admire and want to learn from, or from the organizations that are doing work that you really care about. And the more you connect with them, the more you can understand, one, why they do the work; two, what the strategies are and how they're doing the work; three, how this is going to work in the long term. And then four, of like figuring out how to make things actually happen, right? So I think, with Courage, and even with the Democratic Club, we're, when we talk to candidates, we're looking at people to see, like, how involved have you been with the club? How involved have you been on these issues that we are like regularly advocating for? Have we seen you take part? Have you done something else to make it so that we know you've taken part? Are you also looking to run a campaign that is going to be have a pathway for you to help the movement gain more power, right? We have to remember too that this isn't ever just about like one individual. And I say that saying, like, I think if we had like 50 Holly Mitchells, we would just like, listen, I don't even know if we can figure out a way to duplicate that woman. But it's Holly Mitchell is a great example of a wonderful candidate who lined out her pathway and figured out how she was going to move. But what she did was she did that with all the organizations on the ground. She did that with the electeds who were moving in the right ways that they needed to, was able to build power with them, was able to gain the trust by showing up for the organizations that she said that she wanted to show up for, and actually doing that, right? I think it's, one of my favorite things about her right now is that Supervisor Mitchell, I saw her on a panel this weekend. We have some stuff going on with law enforcement here. We have a new DA that we wanted to get in, and now that we have that DA in, law enforcement is trying to take him out. And as a supervisor who was elected by all these groups on the ground, this like movement in Los Angeles where we knew she was going to stand up for us, she shows up to the platform. She shows up with the victims of, who have had to deal with law enforcement. She shows up for her, like the other supervisors who they need to build power with to make the things happen. And we will continue to show up. We will continue to promote that work, and we will continue to tell people that she's doing the right thing. I just think it's a great example of how you want your relationship to end up looking. But everybody's will look a little bit different depending on what your issues are, depending on where you are, depending on what and who you're representing. But the earlier you can get in with the folks who are already doing the work and figure out how to fill in gaps, I think the stronger your campaign will be and the stronger your relationships will be with those groups that you're going to need support from in order to get elected.
Wow. Yes. I'm just in awe. I'm like, that's just amazing work, and it's so cool to hear from like examples of like what Holly Mitchell is doing, and the work being done in the community. So I really appreciate the advice, and also just the outline of the work that you all are doing. So far, I do see actually a question. So if y'all are okay with that, we can move forward to the Q&A. Awesome. So we let's see. Oh, I should have proofread the question. So is there going to be a way to rewatch these in case we miss something? So in case folks want to go back. And that is a great question. I'm not sure I have the response to that. We will get back to you though, Diana. Thank you for being here. And Myra, thank you for being here. Myra says it was nice hearing from you both. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. And Myra is actually a chapter leader out of Denver, a good friend of mine. So thank you, Myra, for being here as well. And yes, just some amazing insights from you both. But we do have a question. Maybe what are some of the greatest challenges that you both face as you're managing local campaigns? I know you just spoke of some of the issues that have come up within community, but we can start off with Lene, I think.
Well, one challenge, I mean, fundraising is always a challenge. And I know I'll let Molly talk about the fundraising side of it. But yeah, that's always a part of it. But with local races, I think sometimes like one thing we dealt with is a lot of people didn't understand, and some people still don't, what the Board of Supervisors does. It's kind of sounds like an ambiguous group. You know, you can't really tell from the name what exactly that means. And so helping to make it make sense, we did benefit from the fact that our race was on a ballot for a presidential election. So we were able to kind of just talk about a lot of national issues and connect it back locally. But if your race is not on a presidential ticket, it does make it a bit of a challenge, especially if it's a special election, it's a local race, and maybe it's not a city council seat where people know, okay, I know what my city council member does. But yeah, helping it make sense, understanding that LA County has 5 people that sit on the Board of Supervisors, that we are the largest population size county in the country. And a lot of the issues from criminal justice reform, we have one of the largest jail systems, our mental health, all these issues come to a head at the Board of Supervisors. It really is this powerful entity that's determining how we're able to operate in our different public departments and get access to services for 10 million residents. So that sometimes people be like, wait, what is a supervisor? What is this? So breaking that down in a short period of time, like you have a couple of seconds to hold on to someone's attention, was a challenge, but you know, we just knew that was part of the race.
Yeah, ditto on what Lene just said. I don't know how many times you had explained that to us, but it's once they realize how much money the Board of Supervisors actually controls and like everything comes down to them, they're like, oh, all right. Most of them, I think that makes sense, right? I'll speak to 2 things. So I think I'll start with fundraising. I think that like when you're looking to run, it's confusing because you want to figure out what you want to be able to do and what's your why. What are the things you want to affect? And then what type of seat would you want to get into or need to get into in order to make those things happen? Once you figure out those things, you'll see that like each seat has a different level of fundraising for it. Mm-hmm. So like I'm here in Long Beach, California. Our city council races are a max donation of $400. Lene, what was it for supervisor race? Was it
$1,500?
$1,500. A state race, you can get up to $3,900, $4,900, I think, like almost $5,000 is the max out. And so if you think about how many people you have to get to in order to hit the limits that, you know, are frankly differing in like every municipality, every state, right? It can really, it'll mess with you. I think number one, and number two, it like obviously puts a stop on the things that you can and can't do in order to actually make your campaign active. And so, fundraising is a huge piece of this. And so being able to connect to people and helping them understand how the seat you are running for, how it will affect the issues in the lives of the people that you will represent, and trying to convince them to max out a donation to you so that you can pay your staff, so you can pay for some mailers, so that you can, put some social media or digital ads up, whatever it might be. It's always going to be a challenge. And I think also for folks who are running for the first time who don't come with a network in order to fundraise is like a whole nother issue, right? Again, unfortunately, our systems are not set up very equitably, and hopefully we get to a place where we have more public funding for campaigns. But until then, you have to figure out how to meet people. You have to figure out how to ask for money. You have to figure out how to get other people to help you ask for money, which is something else in itself, right? And so there's a lot of having to get outside of your comfort zone in order to raise the money that you need to raise in order to be successful, which is unfortunate because it should just be about you talking to the issues and connecting with people and that kind of thing. But fundraising is obviously a huge position in this. And frankly, especially when there's something like a national election going on, there's a whole lot of distraction, right? So Lene ran one of the most important races in California this year. We also had to get Trump out of office this year. So people were whole distracted by that, right? In addition to the fact that we were trying to flip the US Senate. So I knew people who were doing like presidential fundraisers and US Senate seat fundraisers, but like they didn't even talk to you about any of the local or state elections that were going on, and everybody acted like they were tapped out. And so it was really difficult to get through. So definitely a huge piece of that. And I will also say the second biggest piece with local elections that I would tag on to is that the amount of misinformation that can tend to come out and spread to like a group of people, right? So there was a wonderful woman, Tanua Thrash and Took, a Black woman, was running for city council in Long Beach here. She's a spectacular candidate. She could probably be in like 5 or 6 different seats that I could think of offhand. And unfortunately, even though she ran a stellar campaign, what the other side did was they ran attack pieces on her. They put out information on her that was not correct. The same thing happened to Holly. Frankly, we spent a good amount of time at Courage trying to combat the misinformation that was coming up. They would put up fake websites and other things about her. We would try to like figure out how to get people to not go to that stuff, but to hear the opposite of what those misinformation campaigns were saying. And so I think it is hard to regulate what people are saying about you. Your character comes under attack, whether it's right or wrong, or, you deserve it or not. Those things happen. And I think dealing with those, and then again, having other electeds, community leaders, organizations, labor, whoever it is, to help tell who you really are is really helpful, because, we can't always be there, but we want to try to be there. And that information, unfortunately, when it's directed at people who are susceptible to not knowing everything and not knowing everyone, it's easy to believe that information. And so I would say that's another huge issue that we saw in a lot of local elections this year, especially probably being at home and everything being digital as well, too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And being someone who supported the Run Now program that Ignite puts on to help to empower young women to take action and run for office, I know that fundraising, and then also just, standing tall when there's nothing but, negative smear stuff coming at you, which happens especially as you're young and as you're a woman, and a lot of women in the cohort were women of color, so it's just a spectrum. But for me, I find a lot of hope in that the work that both of you do, y'all were able to combat it. You're able to get through these races and able to do it even amongst the lens of the racial justice movement, the pandemic, all of the things going on. So it is really. Sorry.
I'm just going to add to that point. How we were able to do it is with community.
Mm-hmm.
You see me here, I'm one person, but trust and believe hundreds of people behind that campaign, behind Holly Mitchell. And that was built off of a track record where people knew her. They knew her from Crystal Stairs, and so it comes back to tried and true relationships that have built off of trust, built off of you showing that you're going to do the work. And then people wanting to just be part of the campaign because they see the bigger picture. That's not just about her being in that seat. It's about what she wants to do, the type of generational impact she wants to make. and us making that clear. But without a doubt, it took hundreds of volunteers to be texting, combating false information, picking up the phone. All of that goes into winning an election. And that really comes down to building trusting relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. And I know in the comments, it looks like definitely hearing, it's unfortunate to hear misinformation can sort of make or break you, but how do you take the high road when you want to stoop down to the opposing side's level? You know, you get something thrown at you and you want to react real quick. And so what did y'all suggest, or what did you experience as that came at you?
I can chime in here. One is to tell the truth. I think that, you know, the campaigns, the ads that we ran as well shot back, but we felt that we could stand by these ads because they are telling the truth about what we're saying, the differences, the contrasts between the choices that the voters had. And so I think that by telling the truth, trying to ask yourself, you know, at the end of the day, can you stand by this, by what you're about to say about this person? That helps you kind of not have to get caught up in the mudslinging so much and just kind of say, this is what I'm going to say. And, you know, Supervisor Mitchell would always say, I'm not running against someone, I'm running for something. So my entire campaign is not built on breaking this other person down. My campaign is built on making it clear that based on my record, based on my vision, based on what I know I have the capacity to do, this is why I feel that I am the best choice to fill this very important seat and to be of service. And so I think that helped her kind of kept our team focused, because, you know, sometimes it's emotional. So much is going into this. It's one of the few job opportunities where it's just one out, like, you know, it's like you're publicly fighting for this seat. So you have to acknowledge, okay, I'm a human being. I'm going to have emotions. I'm going to feel some type of way about all this. But really, I have to bring it back to staying focused on the bigger picture and having her leadership set the tone for the campaign, how she operates and carries herself. We knew the things that would not be tolerated because she wouldn't tolerate them. So sorry. I thought my phone's on silent. So that's what I would say is how we kind of stayed focused.
Yeah. You know, I would add on to that. You know, Lene's exactly right. What we have found is that people want to be for something. They don't want to be against something. Whether it is messaging, whether it is in what the opponent might be putting out and saying about you, that might already be turning people off itself, right? It's still something that you want to be able to at least like correct and put the truth out about. But you know, folks will figure some of those things out. Now, you know, that being said, there are plenty of time. I know, like, during this campaign, like, things would come out on Holly and I would not want to go high. I would want to go low, 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 low. That's what I would want to do. And then everybody would be like, don't do that. And be like, okay, you're right. That's not what we should do. And I think it's important to have people around you who will remind you of like what the focus is. And obviously, like, Holly is the seasoned candidate and she was able to help, you know, point her team in the right direction, have people clearly who, you know, knew how to stay on the right track. But having people around you and having strategies and plans to keep people focused on the four is so important. And being able to continue to combat the misinformation and then remind them again of why they want to actually be with you. So I think Holly's campaign did a great job of doing that. You know, it's also, I think, something that you have to, it's part of like figuring out how to move in different spaces too. You know, if you're going against someone and they have people on their campaign that you also know, or you know that other candidate, you know that no matter what, 10 years down the line, y'all are still going to be in the same party together and have to do something with each other. You don't want to take those low shots. And I would also say too, I think, you know, something that's really important that I saw a couple of my Merge sisters kind of get stuck in this year was that, you know, something would come out for them or they would feel like they were not doing as well as they would want to do. And they would come out and say something about the other person. And they would clean up my room. Cool. Can you give me a second? I'm on something. That's my son. Say hi and then leave.
Hi.
Okay. Bye. Uh, but you know, it's a, I would have to tell, I, you have to remind people, you know, if you ever go for someone, say somebody goes for my son, goes for my husband, goes for my family, all of those things, that's on them, right? That tells you who they are. That tells you how they're going to operate. And that should also tell the public as well, if that's where folks are going, if those are the kinds of hits they're trying to take at their opponent because they don't have anything else to come at them with, then that should sort of speak for itself as well. So just a reminder to never, you know, never make anything personal about the other person. You know, keep it to the business, keep it to the issues, stay focused on the things that you need to stay focused on for a campaign.
I love that. Thanks, Molly. Thank you both so much for the insight on that. I did want to, as we're kind of the clock is running down, I did want to open it up just to both of you, as we do have young women in the room who are going to participate as campaign operatives, whether they're with the member or on the issue-based side. Just any advice or any insight that you want to provide, I can open it up to both of y'all.
I'll start because I feel like Lene has much better stuff to say than I do. But what I'll say is somebody who, you know, admittedly, I got into politics. I re-engaged with politics because I was really, really pissed off. And luckily, I was put into a space where I was able to learn from a lot of different people and learn a lot of really great traits and skills. And I'm still learning all the time. I've also looked into running for office myself. And I think that, you know, it's a really hard process to go through. It is something where you really want to figure out what is the right thing for you to do and figure out how to have those, you know, appropriate and attainable pathways in order to like actually get there. And so, you know, anyone who's looking to get involved in a campaign or potentially become a candidate, you know, I absolutely encourage you to do so. And with that, I also encourage you to look at, you know, your own life and where you want to be in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, and figure out what makes the most sense for you. What are the things that we need to have set up in order to make that stuff happen? It bums me out when I see really great people go to, you know, want to run for something, but they don't necessarily have like their pathway actually set up. Like they haven't, you know, figured out how to become, and I don't like the term a viable candidate, but figure out how to, you know, have the fundraising, have the endorsements, have the support, have the volunteers, have the ground game, have all of those things, as well as like a base to stand on in order to be successful and be a candidate that can be successful. So I think, you know, having those real conversations early, really trying to figure out, you know, what are the things you want to get into and why, and then teaming up with other people to make a bigger splash. You know, sometimes we want to do everything ourselves because we might just be able to think we can get it done faster. Well, I'll take the brunt of this work, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really a team effort. And so figuring out who your people are, who those folks are that are going to stand with you, how you're going to have a pathway to success, how you're going to get the right people into those spaces, looking and picking up the right people to bring with you, who may not think of themselves as, you know, a potential operative or a potential candidate. Those are all really important pieces to think about in order to just have some longevity. You know, I want folks who get into politics to be able to have a life that they can sustain and a career that they can sustain in the ways that they want to. And really having those conversations with yourself, with your family, with your friends, with your community ahead of time, I think are some big pieces to get you settled up.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything Molly shared. I just want to add on, first and foremost, that Black women, women of color, women belong in politics. Our lived experiences are important, they matter, and they are relevant to helping to shape public policy. And that's why we absolutely have a right to be in politics. I was just jotting down some notes of some things I want to make sure that I did cover in regards to running for office, I think it is first and foremost important to know what seat you're running for, why you want to serve in that particular seat. Every seat is not the same. There are different responsibilities, expectations that come with different seats. So really doing the homework to understand why you're saying that this seat is the one you want to serve in, especially now at this point, because that's going to be the question. That's ultimately the question that you have to answer over and over again for every voter. And so really being clear about that, and kind of going back to the question that we were asked when we started this, what is your why? That essentially really understanding and knowing that. Being a constant student, I think that that doesn't get lifted up enough. Just the need to constantly do the research, myself included. When I managed the campaign, there were so many people I went to for advice, books I took out, online classes, and I still do this work. I do not know it all. Understanding the parts that you don't know, the things that you need to be better informed about, or the people that you need to connect with that have those answers that need to help shape your team. But really committing yourself to being a constant learner and student allows you to attract more information that will really make you better in this field, and make you more collaborative, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a team. It's going to take collaboration. I also want to just lift up that you cannot do this alone. It is so important to really come into this space knowing that the work that you're trying to do is tied to something bigger than yourself, and how you can play a role in doing that work, that deep change work from whatever seat it is, even if it isn't running for office, but being in the political arena, working for an elected official, but really understanding that this work is communal. And it has to be, because the public policies impact us all. It's never going to just impact one. It has this ripple effect. So we have to think about our work in that way. But absolutely, you belong in this space, and we are so appreciative that you're taking the time out to be involved, and looking forward to us working together.
Oh my goodness. I'm over here fangirling. Both of y'all are my sheroes. Y'all started off saying you were each other's, and I feel so full from hearing from you both, and especially Lene, with you just mentioning like you're a forever student, especially as a young woman about to graduate and considering these things. Sometimes I feel like I don't think I know anything, like I don't know what I'm doing, and so it's really honestly reassuring. Both of what you both said is super reassuring and helpful, and I appreciate you both taking the time to connect with the women of Ignite, and to participate in this conference. I know if folks do want to get directly involved with y'all, the best way maybe is to follow you, or there's always ways to take action. And as organizers, we're always ending with how can I join you in this movement. So yeah, definitely for the folks watching, please follow their Instagrams, and the tags are floating kind of on the bottom, and would definitely love to stay engaged with you both. But I'll go ahead and if there's nothing left from both of y'all, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Shay and Cecilia, and then we will go ahead and close out.
We just wanted to say thank you. Cecilia is our Central Valley coordinator, and Jesse is our amazing Denver fellow. We're excited that you joined us today. This is our future, Molly and Lene, and what you've done is you've added to their tool belt. And I appreciate you, my sisters, and the love that you've given us today. And Jesse, for being a great host. Jesse did such a great job. And we're excited that this is, 3 days to really give young people, as we build a pipeline of future progressive elected leaders, this is our opportunity to get all that information from qualified, community-oriented women like you. So thank you. And I'll head it back to Jesse.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Everyone stay tuned. Keep going on in this conference. There's so much to absorb and to learn. Stay tuned in Young Women Run Conference, from Ignite National. Well, thank you again so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with everything, Jesse.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.